If you're looking to do that, there are many venues where you could be doing that.
Larry Fink,
we are trying to help people build retirement savings. We want people to have a life in retirement with dignity. We spend so much time in our world talking about how we could have healthier lives, but we spend no time focused on, can we afford that longevity? And BlackRock is a firm that tries to provide that type of long-termism. I do believe we spend a great deal of time talking about hope. In a world today where we have greater hatred and greater fear, I think there are many opportunities to think about, despite all those issues, that long-term investing is the way to go. And I believe, you know, at the moment right now we have trillions of dollars money sitting in a money market funds. And so that's just an indication of fear. We have more money sitting in bank balance sheets right now and deposits. That's an indication of fear or uncertainty. And I do believe one of the greatest differentials between U.S. and any country in the world is the strength of the U.S. capital markets. And this is something that we at BlackRock betted on years and years ago that we believe in. And so over time, we believe the opportunity to invest in our economy, investing in our companies, and at times when you want to have a more global view, investing in the world, over a long run, you're going to outperform any bank deposit, you're going to outperform any money market fund, and it's our job to provide the appropriate investments for our clients so they can have that life with dignity.
The form that those investments are taking is changing. Yes. And you also announced sort of a new architecture, I guess is what you're calling it, for BlackRock, really pushing on to ETFs. You've had a lot of success with iShares already. It's grown. It looks like you're doubling down on that. Explain that move into ETFs. How far does it go?
When we bought BGI in 2009, we were ridiculed by most of the financial community for saying you cannot marry the culture of an active investor, who we were, and a passive culture. And we said, why? Our clients use both products. Our job is to be agnostic to our clients, to work with our clients, to provide a whole portfolio solution. But over time, more and more clients started to think about, how do I want to get an exposure? Do I want an exposure in this area or this product? And I could do that through actively investing in ETFs. In 2012, we said, ETFs are going to be the new engine for fixed income. And boy, did that get a lot of ridicule by many people in the business community. And today, the fixed income markets are totally imbued by ETFs. And so at BlackRock, when we bought BGI, we had $290 billion of ETFs. Today, we have $3.5 trillion. And then this week alone, just yesterday, we launched the iShares Bitcoin ETF. And so I would say to you, if we could ETF a Bitcoin, imagine what we could do with all financial instruments. And so what we announced in our architectural change, iShares was this business division in itself. And we thought that's too exclusive. We needed to include the ethos, the philosophy, the spirituality of what iShares can provide in everything we do at BlackRock. Because we believe we're just halfway there in the ETF revolution, that everything is going to be ETF'd. And we needed to ensure both active products, passive products, digital products are going to be used through the vehicle of ETFs. At the same time, in this architectural change, we're elevating the whole concept that we are going to be curating more and more of our performance-based products too. So it's a very large architectural change. A lot of people have asked me, iShares is the most successful division within BlackRock. Look what it did. Why are you doing this now? And we believe it's so important to be anticipating the next move. I would also say on the beginnings of a ETF Bitcoin, we believe ETFs are a technology no different than Bitcoin was a technology for asset storage. We believe the next step going forward will be the tokenization of financial assets. And that means every stock, every bond will have its own basically CUSIP. It'll be on one general ledger. Every investor, you and I, will have our own number, our own identification. We could rid ourselves of all issues around illicit activities around bonds and stocks and digital by having a tokenization. But the most importantly thing, we could customize strategies through tokenization that fits every individual. We would have instantaneous settlement. Think about all the costs of settling bonds and stocks. But if you had a tokenization, everything would be immediate because it's just a line item. And so we believe this is a technological transformation for financial assets. I believe if you want to talk about voting and voting choice and all the things, if we know every moment who is the owner of that stock and it's now time to vote, every individual who has ownership is identified and they could vote their own shares.
Is this the end of mutual funds?
I think, well, a lot of people, it's a wrapper. It's not the end of it, but I would say the dominant form of bringing products going forward will be in the form of ETFs. I don't want to say it's the end because that's too finite, but let's be clear, the growth of ETFs like this has been this, and mutual funds have been declining. And there are going to be some product where a mutual fund might be the best structure, but overall I think in everything we do, in active and passive, we are going to see in the form of ETFs. In the United States, it is so much more transparent. You could buy and sell that instrument throughout the day. In a mutual fund, you have to wait till 4 o'clock in the final pricing. In a mutual fund in the United States, you have a lot of tax issues around the activity within the fund. In an ETF, you control your tax activity. And so these are the technological changes that gave us the idea in 2007 and then executed in 2009 why we needed to buy iShares.
All of this investment comes within a larger context, a social and political context that really affects the investment necessarily. We've got a lot of elections coming up.
I never thought I'd hear
United
Larry
States, but
Fink
not just the
talk
United States,
about
almost half the world.
Korea this weekend.
Hey,
Yeah.
man, I
There
got
is
tissue
perceived to
in
be a
my
rise
nose.
in populism
I'm
in the United
so sick.
States through a
But
particular candidate who
I'm
was
gonna
president
take
and wants to be
myself off
president
the
again.
screen for
But around the world there is.
Yes.
What is the policy risk for investors and for that matter for BlackRock, including, for example, with your big move into infrastructure with GIP? I'm mindful of the fact that ESG has sort of gotten a bad political name in some parts of the country.
Well, I don't use the word ESG anymore. I think I've been quoted on that quite a bit now. But the amount of money that is entering in the decarbonization investing pools is enormous. More and more money. We announced the Occidental Petroleum transaction where they are the leader in air capture. Even former Governor Rick Perry wrote a whole editorial on the power of that. So there is going to be a lot of populism, there's no question. Our job is to make people have a brighter financial future. Our job is to give people more certainty. And our job is to provide information so they have better choices of what to invest. Keep in mind, all $10 trillion of the money, none of it's ours. Our job is to be a fiduciary on behalf of every client in the world. And if you are somebody who does not believe in climate change, and you want to invest 100% in hydrocarbons, we're your investment manager. We will advise you, here are the opportunities we see. But if you are somebody who truly believes in new technologies, I would say the venture capital of new technologies, so we could decarbonize the world, we have a fund for you. We have a product for you. We are aggressively sourcing new and interesting companies that are going to be the leaders in the future. A couple of years ago, I wrote there's going to be 1,000 unicorns who are going to be these innovative companies who are going to help us decarbonize the world faster. And so, and I fully believe that outcome will happen.
Larry, you've taken BlackRock through some transformations. iShares certainly was one of those. Yeah. GIP looks like it's transformational. Yes. The world is changing. Take us back to that world at Credit Suisse First Boston with the young Bio Ogunlesi and young Larry Fink. What are those people looking forward to today? Those people who are just entering the business, how different is it and where is it heading? Where are the opportunities for people? What excites them?
I would say for those who have a passion for investing, a passion to grow and learn, a passion to do the right thing on behalf of your clients, the opportunity today is just as great as when Bio and I started our careers at First Boston. Obviously the markets are entirely different. They're much larger. They're much more efficient. But my gosh, I mean, the young people that we're bringing on board at BlackRock, those who show that imagination, that passion, their opportunities are going to be just as great as my opportunity that I had. And I do believe that is the biggest differentiator between somebody who has this great career and someone who doesn't. You need to be in a career where you're passionate about, that every day you have a desire to learn something new. You have a desire to impart that to your clients and helping your clients. And then when you get into leadership, your job is to make everybody smarter than you. Your job as a leader is to lift more people. And as a big leader, your job is hopefully to have more people earning more money than you did. That's what leadership is about, lifting more and more people. And so I don't think anything's changed. Obviously, how we live our lives have changed. You think about the role of the capital markets. In my mind, the two biggest firms that were so instrumental in driving the growth of the global capital markets are two founding New York City companies, and that's BlackRock and Bloomberg. And I truly believe there's a lot of similarities. When we started, I think Bloomberg started in '84, we started in '88, but the knowledge barrier, the knowledge, information, expansion of the capital markets, the globalization of the capital markets, to me, that is what's driving the success. David, when I go to a country now, many times the political leaders of the country are asking me how can they build their retirement system and how they could build their capital markets. They want to be more dependent in country. They're excited by having international flows go into the country to help that, but they know for long-term stability of their country, to have great and excellent companies, they need to have their own capital markets and they have to have their own retirement system. And this is something that BlackRock can play a big role. And this is one of the more exciting new chapters that I see for the next 10 years for BlackRock. And I believe infrastructure will play a big role in that exciting future.
Larry, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Really appreciate it. That's Larry Fink of BlackRock. Back to you.
All right, fascinating discussion there with Bloomberg's David West and BlackRock's Larry Fink on the purchase of GIP, as well as earnings. Among the headlines that came out of the interview, Fink says the next step is going to be tokenization of financial assets. You are listening to and watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Markets. I'm John Tucker, along with Lisa Mateo. Hi, Lisa. In for Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller. We made it to Friday, and no shortage of market-moving events. The U.S. and U.K. launching airstrikes against Houthi rebels, oil popping higher. Banks, of course, delivering their earnings reports today. Credit quality better than expected, but investment banking lighter than expected. So what's now the outlook for 2024? Final trading day of the week. Let's get you a market update right now. S&P 500 up just 2 points, still flirting with that 47.96 number right now at 47.81. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 139 points lower. That is down 0.4%. We're at 37,596. And the NASDAQ 100 pretty much unchanged right now, 16,823. As far as treasuries, we've got the PPI, that coming a little lighter than expected after the CPI was hotter than expected yesterday. 2-year yield down 9 basis points. The 10-year is 4 basis points lower. Well, as promised, bank earnings. So let's break down the bank earnings that we got today. We're joined by Allison Williams, senior bank analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence. Quick overview would suggest credit quality better than expected, but investment banking, as I said, a little lighter than expected. Allison, what's the overall take?
So I think the most important takeaways are things looking more positive for JP Morgan and less so for Wells Fargo, and that's a combination of the net interest income outlook as well as the cost outlook. So JP Morgan guided up on net interest income. They also guided up on costs, but net still the pre-tax difference going higher for them. So that's a good thing. They also surprised in the quarter versus consensus for net interest income. That resilience is something that we were looking for, and they delivered.
JP Morgan seems to be in a class all by itself when compared to the other banks, right?
I mean, certainly when you look at the returns, and that is the key metric that investors look at for banks, they look at the return on tangible equity, and that is very strong at JP Morgan, especially compared to peers.
Now, you mentioned something that surprised you, a couple of things, but what really else stood out to you when you were going through and you were seeing all the results come in?
So I think the net interest income and the overall returns at JP Morgan, as we said, those are kind of the standout. When it comes to trading and banking, we're seeing a lot of different headlines, but to us, the trading is relatively resilient, so we think that's all good. The investment banking fees are showing some signs of stabilization. If you net the two together, they were a little bit shy of consensus, but I would say about in line with what the banks had guided and expected when they spoke in December.
Can I still call Citigroup a big bank?
Yes, you can, despite all the cuts. And keeping in mind, so they have sold parts of their business. They are getting more focused, and they are going to be cutting those middle management layers. And so that's, I think, something that's going to improve. But a lot of that is really just about improving efficiency. So the go forward that you're seeing now and the cuts that you're seeing now are more about just running the bank better. And just removing a lot of extra layers of management, not necessarily the business changes that we've seen over the past couple of years as they've sold off pieces of their business.
Wow, and that's 20,000 jobs they announced today, so that was pretty big. Where else do you see them controlling costs?
I think it is really just the cutting out of the management layers. That's the big difference at Citi versus other banks. I think across the banks, what we're seeing are digital improving, aiding the efficiency, but on on some of the other costs to compete, as we refer to them, so talent and tech, those costs continue to be elevated. And we do think that the banks should be spending in those areas. We do think we want the banks to invest for the long term, or if I was an investor, I would want the banks to think long term. And certainly the U.S. banks have had this virtuous cycle of investment. If we come back to JP Morgan, that really has shown in their results.
All right, 20 seconds left. What's their outlook for interest rates?
The outlook for interest rates, they just follow the market. They just follow the curve. And so the curve is telling you that we're expecting interest rate cuts. And so that is factored into the net interest income guidance. The card business, which has a higher yield and is the area where we're getting loan growth, that's helpful to JP Morgan. It's a much smaller business for Wells, smaller for the regionals.
Allison, always a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. Allison Williams, Senior Bank Analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence on today's bank earnings. As we look at the markets right now, S&P 500 pretty much unchanged. The Dow up 142 points. The NASDAQ is up 3 points. This is Bloomberg. And it's 10:18 on Wall Street. That is time to take a look at some of the company news we're following. And with that, here's Steve Rappaport.
John, shares of ExxonMobil, BP, and Chevron are all up, along with the price of oil. That's after the U.S. and U.K. launched strikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen. More on that from Bloomberg's Bill Ferries.
People have been greatly worried that the Israel-Hamas war would expand into a regional conflict. There will be people who look at this and say it's more sign that this is closer to dragging Iran into it. Iran has been a big supporter of the Houthis. It remains to be seen whether they can resupply those Houthi rebels at all, given the military firepower still amassed in the Red Sea. But it certainly brings it one step closer to this becoming a much broader conflict.
Bloomberg's Bill Ferries reporting a Houthi leader says a response to those strikes is imminent. The U.S. government is stepping up scrutiny of two telecom giants. Bloomberg's Gina Cervetti reports.
The EPA is ramping up its inquiry of telecom giants AT&T and Verizon after an investigation found that old lead-covered cables had contaminated waterways and soil in parts of the U.S. A trade group that represents both companies said test results continue to show that telecom lead-covered cables pose no significant public health risk.
Thanks, Gina. Citigroup is cutting 20,000 jobs as part of CEO Jane Frazier's strategy to boost returns. Citi says the downsizing will save it as much as $2.5 billion, but in the meantime, the firm expects to incur as much as $1 billion in severance and expenses related to the overhaul. Those are the company stories we're following this hour. I'm Steve Rappaport. This is Bloomberg.
Y'all just hear how many jobs are getting cut? So we got fucking BlackRock. I think it was BlackRock just cut a whole bunch of companies, they've cut like 600 employees or something like that. And they just bought a company. Now Citi is cutting 200,000. Yeah, we do job cuts for companies, but damn. Oh, excuse me. As I said it, look, if I say anything's good in the market, if I buy it, that's your sign to sell. Like, as soon as I said it, it just dropped. It's like, oh, he said it's good. Drop it. Drop it. What happened? Give me coffee. Wake up. See where the market's at. Yeah. Man. A lot going on. Zim's at 15. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Coming up to 10:22 on Wall Street, I'm Nathan Hager. This update's brought to you by Interactive Brokers. Interactive Brokers clients earn up to 4.83% on their uninvested, instantly available USD cash balances. Rates subject to change. Visit ibkr.com/interest rates to learn more. Seeing a change in the market, stocks are moving just a bit lower now. The 2-year yield is at its lowest level since May after that unexpected drop in producer prices, added to bets that the Fed could cut interest rates sooner than it's been saying. We check the markets all day long on Bloomberg. Right now, the S&P 500 is down 1 point. 4779 is the S&P level. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.4%. That's a drop of 154 points. The NASDAQ Composite is little changed, down 1 point. 7 of the 11 main industry groups in the S&P are in the green right now. Energy and communication services are the biggest gainers. Consumer discretionary and healthcare are leading the declines we're seeing in the S&P right now. And looking at NYMEX crude, it's still surging up 2 2/3% at $73.94 per barrel. We've been seeing oil rise after the U.S. and U.K. led strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. COMEX gold is up 2.1%, trading at $2,062.20 per ounce. The euro showing a little bit of strength now against the dollar, 1.0981. The yen is at 144.42. Biggest decliners for the S&P right now are the airlines. We saw Delta come in with unexpected drop in its 2024 profit target. Right now, Delta shares are lower by 7.7%. We're also watching United, American Airlines, and Southwest also posting big declines right now. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues this morning with John Tucker and Lisa Mateo.
Nathan, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Well, we all know about geopolitical risk.
Bloody in the market right now.
Oil pop higher after the U.S. and allies launched airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen.
For Zim.
As an investor, can you mitigate risks like that, or should you even try?
Well, Apple agreed.
Let's get some answers this morning. Global Macro View with Jeffrey Kleintup, the global strategist, chief global strategist at Charles Schwab. Thanks for being with us. We call them risk assets for a reason. Should I be losing sleep over events over which I have no control?
Well, these types of events are, just an ever-present risk when it comes to investing. We've seen backups, a choke point at the Panama Canal for months now. It's only getting worse as we head into February, as the cargo traffic through that particular vital global supply chain link is really cutting back to less than 50% of capacity by February. 40% of the world's freight traffic moves through the Panama Canal. That's an issue. The Red Sea certainly moves a lot of energy, yet the world is oversupplied right now. And so I think that's one of the reasons, yes, we're seeing a bounce in energy prices, but we are not in a deficit situation. And as a result of that, I think this is something that can be probably absorbed. We're not likely to see the type of surge to input prices that we saw during the pandemic tied to supply chain issues related to these particular threats at these two vital supply chain choke points. That could be different were they to linger into the latter part of this year, where maybe we run into an undersupply situation with energy. But for right now, no, I don't think you need to lose sleep over this, just expecting this is part of one of those risks when it comes to investing.
Now, something else people might lose some sleep over, interest rates. I want to talk and give it a little economic outlook. Yesterday, we heard Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester. She said central bankers probably will have to wait past March before they can start cutting interest rates. What's your take on this?
I think that the market has gotten a little carried away with the magnitude of rate cuts likely in 2024. I think it's probably something closer to what the Fed has been telling us, maybe 3 or 4 rate cuts rather than 5 or 6. And some of the reason for that is the potential volatility in the path of inflation. We know inflation rarely subsides in a straight line, and we're now beginning to see this as we get closer to the Fed's target. It's getting harder and harder to push those numbers down. We know housing remains very challenging in the U.S. to try and push those housing rental rates down. And the result is that, yes, it may take a little bit longer. So I think the rally we saw in the market at the end of last year, enthusiasm around a soft landing and a flood of rate cuts, might need to be tempered early this year as maybe we see a push out in the beginning and the magnitude of the number of cuts we expect from the Fed.
Hey, Jeff, is disinflation good for markets or not?
Well, it's generally good in that it lowers borrowing costs, and we generally see a little bit more investment by businesses, but we've really yet to see that pick up, right? So we're still in an environment of much higher rates than businesses had been used to a few years ago, and so we're not seeing the type of capital expenditures or hiring that would normally go along with lower rates and the disinflation. So in general, it's a good thing, but it takes some time for that begin to show up in economic activity.
Hey, Jeff, so big bank earnings out today. That's been the big talk. If rates go lower, what's the impact of margins? I mean, is that still a place to invest?
Bitcoin dropped to 44.
I do think financials are our favorite sector for 2024, and there's a variety of reasons. One is that you've got this balance of, what are banks going to earn in the short term on their cash, balanced by the fact that they hold a lot of maybe longer dated fixed income because that's how they hold their reserves. And of course, we all know the challenges that caused last year with the rout in some of those banking stocks on that big surge in interest rates. So there's that balance in terms of what the yield curve does this year. But maybe even more importantly is the credit outlook. And looking at the credit picture, it looks relatively bright. Usually we're going to see soaring bankruptcies through a deeper downturn in the economy. We didn't get that this time, and we may not. Businesses seem to have been holding more cash. The economy seems to be managing its way through this downturn in manufacturing with a bit more strength in services. And the result of that is that we may see much less in terms of losses and provisioning for losses by banks. So actually pretty bright outlook for the banks, given how they are braced on a valuation basis for a more difficult environment.
What's the outlook for the consumer? You mentioned loan loss provisions and credit cards, probably not as high as we would have expected. But what is the outlook there for the consumer?
So much is going to be dependent, I think, upon the job market. We've seen some signs of layoffs last year, but really it's not much of a follow-through. Businesses still seem to be hoarding labor, and we know that a lot of consumer spending really comes down to confidence in the employment situation and wages. And as long as that remains fairly high, I think you can see a consumer that continues to spend.
And what about your 2024, your whole global outlook? What are you liking right now?
So I'm actually looking outside the U.S. Overall, what we've seen is a pivot, but not less of a pivot towards rate cuts and more of a pivot to international outperformance after years of the U.S. market leading the way. Sure, last year on a cap-weighted basis, the S&P 500 beat the rest of the world. But if you look at what the average stock did using the equal-weighted benchmarks, we actually saw the EFI index outperformed the S&P 500. The average international stock beat the average U.S. stock, really eclipsed by just those 7 magnificent stocks in the AI universe that really led the U.S. cap-weighted indices to outperform. I think that broader performance is going to be revealed this year in a period where we're going to see some volatility in the economic data, the inflation picture. I think those stocks outside the U.S., lower valuations, maybe a better earnings environment as the manufacturing sector recovers. That looks brighter to me. So I think we'll see the first year in a long time of international market outperformance.
I look to Charles Schwab when I want to know about fund flows. What are you seeing on that front?
Investors are still favoring fixed income. Money is flowing into the bond market after many years where it was just unattractive to be there. So that's where we're seeing money go. But at the margin, we're also seeing money flow into international equities. Perhaps that's a little bit of rebalancing after last year where the U.S. outperformed. But it is interesting to note, this has been several months now, we've seen more money flowing into international markets than the U.S. markets. And I'm speaking broadly for the industry as a whole. And that's encouraging to me as well as investors maybe reconsider their portfolios and broaden that diversification.
Hey, Jeff, before we go, quickly, we started this segment here talking about risk. I want to bring it back full circle here. So you can hedge risk, but is hedging worth it because it's not cheap?
It really is not cheap, and I think that's one of the challenges here. And one of the benefits of having a diversified portfolio right now, we just talked about, is the fact that bonds are actually paying you. They offer some interest now, and they're offering a little bit of an offset when we go through these periods of volatility. Just this morning, rally in the bond market on this, revelation of these attacks on the Houthi rebels, and so you get a little bit of that volatility dampening effect in your portfolio with that classic 60-40 mix. That maybe that's back as a dampening factor after so many years where fixed income really didn't act as an effective a hedge to equity volatility. Maybe we're beginning to see that now.
Yeah, I missed out on 5%. Is what is it, 393 right now on a 10-year? Is that still a screaming buy?
We still think that's attractive and a reason to extend duration. We think that around year-end, yields may be around that same level. So we don't see a big rally in the fixed income markets, but we don't see a further sell-off either. And that means you can pocket some of that yield and benefit from the volatility dampening effect.
Jeff, always a pleasure. Appreciate it. Jeffrey Kleintop, the Chief Global Strategist, joining us from Charles Schwab. As we look at the markets right now, not a lot of movement, at least. S&P 500 up 4 points. I'm still looking at that 46.96 number, which would be the record close from 2 years ago. Not far away from that, 47.85 right now on the S&P 500, up about 0.1%. Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 127 points. That's down 0.3%. And the NASDAQ 100 right now, 24 points higher. That is up about 0.1%. And as far as yields go right now, they're lower after the PPI report coming in a little lighter than expected this morning. The 10-year, 3 basis points lower. That's at 393. The more policy reactive 2-year, 9 basis points lower. That right now is at 415. You are listening and watching to Bloomberg Markets. I'm John Tucker along with Lisa Mateo. And right now, time to head to Washington. Let's get an update on world and national news. And for that, Amy Morris. You made it to Friday, Amy.
Just barely, John. Thanks so much. The risk of a wider war in the Middle East is also in focus now that the U.S. and U.K. have launched dozens of airstrikes against Houthi militants in Yemen. President Biden says he will take more action if necessary. Bloomberg's Rosalind Matheson has more.
These were very tactical, surgical strikes. These strikes were very well telegraphed also, which allowed them to clear out of some of their bases. So it does seem the objective was to make a point to the Houthis without escalating and the Houthis feeling they need to take massive retaliation.
Now, the Houthis responded saying all U.S. and U.K. interests have become legitimate targets. They say a strike now is imminent. Israel is defending itself against charges of genocide before an international court, saying the war in Gaza is not intended to destroy the Palestinian people. An Israeli lawyer made that argument today in the International Court of Justice. The lawyer told the court that Israel is under attack on multiple fronts. Mishaps with Boeing and Japan Airlines drawing fresh scrutiny of the airline industry and safety procedures. Lawmakers want Congress to act on a 5-year bill reauthorizing the FAA before it expires March 8th. Meanwhile, the FAA is also increasing its oversight of Boeing production and manufacturing, and it is auditing the MAX 9 production line and suppliers. Amtrak trains running between New York City and Philadelphia are holding until further notice because of signal issues. The rail operator says New Jersey Transit Northeast Corridor service is also suspended between Trenton and New York's Penn Station. And voting begins for real in the Republican presidential race Monday night. The first-in-the-nation caucuses get underway in Iowa. Caucus goers will have to contend with a polar vortex on their way to the meeting halls. They're hardy. They can handle it. Recent polls show Donald Trump with 51% backing in Iowa, well ahead of Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.
I gotta go get the rest of my coffee. Excuse me. Ow. Hurt myself. Aye. All right. All right, all right, all right, all right. Oh.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 10:40 on Wall Street. I'm Nathan Hager. Stocks are kind of fluctuating, and two-year Treasury yields are down to their lowest level since May after an unexpected drop in producer prices for the month of December. We check the markets all day long on Bloomberg. Right now, the S&P is little changed, down 1 point. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.5% or 174 points. The NASDAQ Composite is little changed, higher by 2 points. 10-year Treasury yield at 3.94%. The two-year is at 4.15. A lot of focus on the big banks. We heard from 4 of them reporting earnings for the fourth quarter, and it's kind of a mixed bag for them. JP Morgan Chase is up 1.1%, while Bank of America is down 1.5%. Wells Fargo's down about 1% as well. Citigroup is kind of fluctuating between gains and losses. Steve Rasciuto is chief U.S. economist at Mizuho Americas.
Basically, the market has discounted this year's earnings already. So if there's any downward adjustment in this year's earnings, we think this leads to a sideways trading range in the market rather than a continued upward spike as some of the bulls are anticipating.
And you can hear more of Steve Rasciuto's outlook for earnings across the market on the Bloomberg Surveillance podcast. NYMEX crude is higher by 1.9%, so trimming some of its gains, now trading at $73.40 per barrel. COMEX gold is up 2% at $2,058.80 per ounce. The euro, 1.0978 against the dollar. The yen, 144.76. Biggest drag on the S&P right now is airline stocks. Delta backed away from its 2024 profit target on persistently high costs. Right now, Delta shares are down 8%. Its peers are falling as well. United's down 9%. American Airlines down 8.5%. Southwest Airlines down 5%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues with John Tucker and Lisa Mateo.
All right, Nate, thanks a lot. And that brings us to 10:42 Wall Street time. You are listening to Bloomberg Markets. I'm John Tucker along with Lisa. Welcome to Friday. We're in, of course, for Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller. Lisa, here's a question for you.
Yes.
What is it that keeps you up at night? You probably
My
sleep like a
kids,
baby.
I don't know. I'm always worried about them. That keeps me up at night.
I know. It's pretty much everything. Well, the folks at the conference board put that question to global CEOs. Dana Peterson is chief economist at the conference board with the results of their survey. So, Dana, welcome, first of all. Are the big wigs in the C-suite gloomy, happy, or what?
It's kind of a mix. They're very worried about recessions and slowdowns as well as high inflation and geopolitics, but they are looking forward to growth, and they certainly have plans in terms of expansion and also investments in innovation to make sure that they do grow over the next year.
Now, what are their biggest worries? I know recession, inflation. I mean, are they ready for it? How are they preparing?
Well, the interesting thing is that given those two things that they're very, very worried about, they are not prepared to deal with another crisis having to do with a recession or high inflation. They're also very worried about labor shortages and geopolitical risks, including wars. And for most of those things, they are not really ready. But they are thinking about, well, how do we push through despite these very high risks? And certainly when it comes to labor shortages, they're looking at attracting and retaining top talent. So that includes things like investing in their talent, AI, upskilling and retraining. So they're certainly trying to find their way through the fog.
What is it that backs up those views? Is it anecdotal evidence? Is it sales figures? I mean, they have to be gloomy for a reason, right?
Well, CEOs are notorious for looking ahead and looking down the road. And certainly it's also going to be colored by recent experience. Certainly in recent experience, they've seen major increases in input costs. And certainly that includes higher interest rates. The cost of capital is elevated, and all that feeds into inflation. They've seen around the world, China slowing, Europe is slowing, a number of conflicts are causing disruptions in production and trade and investments, and all those things have gotten them very worried.
So with all these negative things that we're hearing, how do they even plan to grow profits in 2024?
Well, they're looking at expansion. So expansion means looking at new regions and countries to investment, new lines of business, looking at new products and new services, and also using tools like AI to really enhance the performance of their businesses and also their workers. And I think all of this is going to be great for not only cutting costs and driving the bottom line, but also increasing profits.
Well, wait a second. If they're worried about labor and they want to hold on to their workers and top talent, are they paying them more? I mean, is it an inflationary picture we're looking at?
Well, certainly when we look at the BLS data, yes, in those industries that are suffering from labor shortages, they are paying their workers more. And also those industries where they're worried about people quitting or a lot of people are retiring, they are raising wages. But again, that's very costly. So businesses are trying to find ways around that. And a lot of that's through digital transformation and technology.
Now, you're talking about the workers getting paid, but where are they working? That's the big question. This whole battle back and forth between, are you in the office? Are you at home? Where are you going? Are CEOs, are they just throwing in the towel and saying, you know what, you guys do what you want to do? Or are they going to try and get more people in the office?
Well, it's interesting. We did ask about the imperative to bring people back to the office, and it was really low. CEOs are not that focused on it. They're more focused on flexibility and making sure that their workers are having a good experience, that they're collaborating, that the culture is very important, that there's a right culture to keep their workers and also to attract new workers. So again, I think they're recognizing that remote work is here to stay in some form, but they're really trying to enhance the culture to make sure that people do, when they come into the office, they have a good experience and they're productive.
Is this survey broken down by region and industry? And if so, what, if anything, does that tell you?
Yes, it's definitely broken down by region. And so that includes the US, Europe, Japan, Latin America, and then the rest of the world. When we look at those regions, there's really not much of a big difference in terms of how CEOs think in terms of the big issues. Though I would note that Japan was very much worried about labor shortages and also US-China relations. When it comes to industry, we looked at finance, manufacturing, and then everyone else. And certainly there's a big focus in terms of finance on the cost of capital and higher interest rates. But for the most part, there's a lot of synergies, a lot of commonality in the way that CEOs around the world are viewing the business environment.
Yeah, with manufacturing, since it's been in recession, I would imagine they're a little more pessimistic than most.
Yeah, they definitely are. And you're right. There has been this manufacturing recession. And a lot of that reflects the fact that manufacturing was one of the pandemic darlings. It did extremely well when everyone was stuck at home and buying things. But certainly as we shifted more towards a better balance between goods and services consumption, manufacturing experienced a slump. And certainly when you look around the world, you see that there's very weak growth in China, also very weak growth in Europe, in and out of recession, UK, Germany may go back into recession. And these are areas that tend to be big manufacturing hubs and also big consumers of goods. And so if you have weak demand in those areas, that's certainly going to impact the manufacturing sector as well.
Hey, Dana, we have about probably a minute left. You had mentioned AI, so I want to kind of bring it back there because this has been another problem in the workplace too. Are CEOs, are they embracing it? You had mentioned they have to do some more training. How are they tackling AI in 2024?
Well, it's interesting. They're welcoming AI with open arms. Most CEOs that we canvassed said they have already adopted AI or have plans to do so. So they're overwhelmingly for it. They think that it's going to enhance profitability. It's going to make their workers more productive. But they are wary. They are aware that there are some risks and responsibilities. There may be more regulation. You have to think about how to make sure that AI is not going to compromise your intellectual property or even that there will be unethical use. But for the most part, companies are very welcoming. They're excited about AI.
All right, Dana, always a pleasure. Appreciate it. Dana Peterson, the chief economist at the Conference Board. What CEOs are worried about? Right now, as we look at the markets, S&P 500, that's down 6 points, down 0.1%, 4773 on the index. The Dow, 214 points lower, that's down 0.6%. The NASDAQ 124 points lower. And you are listening to Bloomberg Markets. I'm John Tucker, along with Lisa Mateo. And that brings us to 10:50 on Wall Street. Let's get an update on company news. And with that, here's Steve Rappaport.
John, Citigroup says it will eliminate 20,000 jobs in a move that will save the firm as much as $2.5 billion. Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet has the latest.
Steve, it is part of CEO Jane Frazier's quest to boost the Wall Street giant's lagging returns. Citigroup says firm-wide expenses are expected to drop to a range of $51 to $53 billion over the medium term. In the meantime, though, the firm expects to incur as much as $1 billion in expenses tied to severance payments and Frazier's broader overhaul of the bank. The outlook for cost savings helped mask a disappointing fourth quarter, where Citigroup's fixed income traders turned in their worst performance in 5 years. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks, Charlie. The FAA says it will increase its oversight of Boeing's production and manufacturing operations a day after it opened a formal investigation into the plane maker over last week's accident on a 737 MAX 9 jet. The regulator is conducting an audit of the MAX 9 production line and might even bring in a third party to oversee inspections and quality control. CVS plans to close dozens of its locations in Target stores as the drugstore chain grapples with rising costs in its pharmacy business. Shares of CVS are down more than 3%. Anheuser-Busch InBev is going for gold. The brewer agreed to become a sponsor of the Olympic Games. The partnership will last through 2028. Those are the company stories we're following this hour. I'm Steve Rappaport, and this is Bloomberg.
Only five Martian graves so far. That's it. 22 laps. I gotta unlock Manifest completely, so that's a lot of quests. Boron sticks.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller on Bloomberg Radio.
And I'm John Tucker, along with Lisa Mateo. We're in for Paul and Matt today. Just ahead, update of the markets. But first, let's get an update of world and national news. And to do that, we head to Washington now and say hi to Amy Morris.
Hi, John. Thank you. The U.S. and U.K. have launched dozens of strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen early today in a bid to stop the Iran-backed group's shipping attacks in the Red Sea. Bloomberg's Bill Ferries explains.
It looks like the U.S., U.K., and their allies hit more than a dozen sites, targets in Yemen, believed to be used by the Houthi rebels for everything from like radar facilities to weapons depots, places where drones could be assembled and stored for launch, as well as sites holding ballistic missiles.
Bloomberg's Bill Ferries reporting the Houthis appear undeterred. They say all U.S. and U.K. interests have become legitimate targets now and that a strike would be imminent. President Biden announcing federal student debt will be wiped clean for some who took out small loans. Those who got less than $12,000 in loans and have been paying them off for at least 10 years will see their remaining debt canceled immediately. This applies to those who are enrolled in the SAVE repayment plan. A polar vortex about to unleash an Arctic blast across much of the U.S. this weekend. Bloomberg meteorologist Rob Carolyn tracking the storm.
Low pressure continues to lift out of the central United States. It'll produce rain across the Ohio River Valley, the deep south, and also the Gulf Coast. Some of the storms in the Gulf coastal region and also over the southeast may be strong as the day goes on.
Bloomberg meteorologist Rob Carolyn tells us there's also snow with this system, with blizzard warnings in effect from Minnesota into Illinois. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg. John and Lisa.
All right, Amy Morris in Washington. Thanks very much.
All right. So we have a little talker here, John. This story kind of stuck out. You know, we're in New York. You're in New York, right? You see rats sometimes all over the place, okay? So
the little furry kind?
Yes. So the problem is that a lot of people are having issues with the rats in their cars. So it's getting cold out, so the rats are finding somewhere warm, and that's the engines of your car and different places to stay. So they're starting to nibble, and they're causing a lot of issues for problems. So there's one theater professor at City University in New York. He's had like a couple of these rodent infestations in his car, and he's done different things. So what's trending is what's happening, what people are doing to keep the rats away. So he has wrapped his ignition wires in minty tape. He's doused garlic-scented potion on his engine, and
that makes them sound like they're tasty now. Minty garlic.
I know. He parks even in a different spot each night, trying to see which is the better way.
Well, good luck with that.
I know. I'm telling you. So a lot of other people. Wait, let me find some of these other things that they're doing. Let's see. Cold weather. Okay, so here we got. So another thing is they're sticking bars of Irish Spring soap into the cabin because I guess that keeps them out. The center console and the trunk as well. So that's another tip you can use if you're having a rat issue. My husband's coworker actually did have a rat issue in their parking lot, and she drove, and her car wound up stalling on the way home because it finally kicked in, about that. And this is funny because Jess was just talking about this. Remember the pizza rat? Come on, Jess, remember the pizza rat?
Somehow John Tucker didn't know about this.
This is why
How
I
could
live
you
in the
forget about the
suburbs.
pizza
We don't
rat,
have
John?
rats there. And it's a big issue. The insurance industry estimated to have paid out more than 91,700 car damage claims caused by rodents. Also have to give credit to squirrels and rabbits nationally between July of 2022 and June of 2023. This is according to the latest estimates by State Farm. Yeah, they like the little chewy rubbery things in your car as well. So
yes, and that's the problem. They're chewing that, and then people are getting stuck. They're driving home like my husband's friend, and now you got to call a tow truck on top of it because your car is stalled out on the roadway.
I thought, didn't we have a rat czar in the city? She was going to take care of all this?
She's supposed to be.
That's right. What happened with that?
But I see him
she's
all
falling
the time
down
in
on the job.
I think so.
Rats living in my car.
Like that.
So yeah, garlic oil, white pepper, pine sol, all that kind of stuff. If you have a rat
Also
problem.
wards up vampires as well.
Yeah.
And right now, S&P 500 6 points lower, 47.74. You're listening to Bloomberg Markets. Stay with us. Market check straight ahead.
I like this setup.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller.
Why were the economists so wrong? What are the economists getting wrong? Isn't this a slam dunk time to buy U.S. Treasuries? Soft landing, hard landing, no landing? I don't know. True, what the heck does that mean? I don't know.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
We're going to be in an environment with higher rates for longer.
The 5-day in-office work week is effectively dead.
It's definitely a good sign that we're not ready to land this economy just yet.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller on Bloomberg Radio.
And hi, everybody. I'm John Tucker, along with Lisa Mateo, in for Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller. Well, yeah, you made it to Friday. That's good. No shortage of market-moving events today. U.S. and U.K. launching airstrikes against Houthi rebels, oil popping higher, banks delivering their earnings report. Also got another inflation report. This one was a little cooler than the CPI yesterday. We're talking about the PPI we got this morning. And let's take a look at trading this Friday. Nathan Hager here with a market update. Nate, how are you?
Yeah, watching. Not too bad, John, but the stock market's moving just a touch lower off the back of that cooler than expected PPI print. We continue to watch Treasury yields very closely. The 2-year policy sensitive, of course, it's down to its lowest level since May after those producer prices came in with an unexpected decline. Victoria Fernandez, chief market strategist at Crossmark Global Investments, says the downward trend for inflation could weigh on corporate earnings.
You look at corporations as a whole, they are losing some of that pricing power. As you have the disinflation come in, as wages continue to stay high, these companies are losing their pricing power. We think it's going to affect margins across the board, and that's going to be one of the key themes for this earnings season. It's one of the reasons we think the market is probably going to have more of a pullback than what we've seen so far.
Now you can hear more from Victoria Fernandez of Crossmark on the Bloomberg Surveillance podcast. We are seeing just a bit of a pullback for stocks. Let's check the markets as we do all day long here on Bloomberg. Right now, the S&P 500 is down 0.1% or 6 points at 4774. The Dow Jones Industrial Average leading the declines right now, down 0.6% or 211 points, trading at 37,500. And the NASDAQ Composite's little change to the downside, down 8 points at 14,963. NYMEX crude is up 2.2%. We'd seen gains in the pre-market as high as 4% after those attacks on the Houthi targets. Right now, NYMEX trades at $73.65 per barrel. COMEX gold is up 1.8% at $2,056.60 per ounce. The euro 1.0967 against the dollar. British pound 1.2764. The yen is at 144.75. And looking at Bitcoin, it is down 3.8% now at around 44,400. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues with John Tucker and Lisa Mateo.
Nathan, thanks a lot. And now we can look under the hood. Let's get a look at some of the stocks on the move and companies to watch. Bloomberg equities reporter Jess Menton. What was the old joke about how to become a millionaire? First, you make $1 billion, and then you buy an airline.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we're heading into airlines. What a great segue, John Tucker, getting into that from the dynamic duo this morning. You and Lisa with Paul obviously on his way to Aruba with the flamingos.
Doesn't that just like, what are we doing wrong?
I know. It's all right. We'll check back with him in a little over a week on how that's going. But unfortunately, if you look at Delta stock, DAL is the ticker symbol on this, and you are seeing airlines weighed down also by this, when you are looking at its stock in particular, down over 7%. So it's on pace for its worst day since June of 2022. So what happened here, Delta actually walked back its 2024 profit goal on higher costs and wages. So you are seeing that dragging down other airlines, whether you're looking at United Airlines, American Airlines as well. But actually ahead of this, and actually through yesterday's close, the stock actually had gained around 22%, or actually in 2023. So you are seeing Delta back away from that profit target for this year. So you are seeing that along with other airline stocks being affected by that. And of course, another stock I have to bring up is looking over at Tesla, TSLA. This is another, in the top 10 weightings here when it comes to the S&P 500, but it is down close to 3%. So when you are looking at that stocks, the car maker actually cut prices once again, specifically in China, and did say that its lone European factory will be disrupted by attacks in the Red Sea. So you're seeing that stock pressured as well, John.
What else are you looking at?
So
Bank
many
earnings.
things.
Well, let's
Of
start
course.
there because give me the overriding theme. It seems like there was J.P. Morgan Chase and then everybody else.
That's right. So when you do look at JP Morgan, of course, it had record net interest income, and that's really one of those key components that strategists and investors like to keep an eye on as far as what that means for obviously the health of the bank and moving forward. But it continued as far as looking out for this year, had more of an optimistic outlook when it came to net interest income. When you are looking at that stock, though, JPM is a ticker symbol on this, up about 0.7%, though. When you are looking at those stocks pre-market, those had been higher this morning, gave up a little bit of those gains. That's when you saw the market tick back lower more broadly. But of course, another stock to point out is Citigroup. So C is the ticker symbol on this, down 1%.
I asked Allison Williams
Yeah.
the question. It's just like, is Citigroup still like one in the same category as the rest of them?
Yeah, and I mean,
it's like
it's
for
tricky.
sure,
right,
but yeah.
right, yeah. So you are seeing a big cost-cutting effort go through with Citigroup in particular. So they are set to cut 20,000 roles because Jane Fraser is really trying to boost returns here. But they did also say when they were Jane Fraser was on the call talking about how the fourth quarter was very disappointing there, and so you're looking at that stock coming under pressure. It actually had been higher in pre-market trading and around the opening bell had been up more than 2%, but you're seeing that giving back gains. So kind of more broadly here when you are looking at the banks lower, but they've also been on a tear. So the KBW Bank Index, if you look at from actually last quarter coming into this year, it was over a 20% gain. It was up about 23%. And so that was one of its best quarterly gains in years. So a lot of those, especially what happened with those banks last spring with the regional stresses with that, you did see banks bounce back coming into this year. So some of those stocks giving back some of the gains there this morning. But I mean, overall, especially when you think about what's happening with Bank of America in particular as well, because that's definitely a bank that is so consumer focused. So when it comes to Brian Moynihan, their CEO, and their outlook for what the consumer is, I know last year so many economists got it wrong, thinking about the economy would be slowing down much more dramatically. If you look at that third quarter GDP number, it was close to 5%. But the Atlanta Fed right now, they actually have a 2.2% annualized growth for the fourth quarter, which is obviously that gangbuster, typically holiday quarter, which really powers consumer spending and GDP. I mean, obviously it's not 5%, it's around 2.2%, but that's still pretty strong growth there. But we are going to get an update when it comes to retail sales for the month of December next week. So that's going to be key because as some of this data's come in, because the Atlanta Fed model for GDP can be pretty volatile. So as those numbers have been coming in, actually those estimates for GDP have been coming up because the numbers for retail and consumer spending were stronger than expected in November. And so it's going to be key to see if that momentum keeps up for December, because it seems like that outlook for over 2% growth for last quarter could continue to hold there. So that'll be important to just see how the consumer is, and obviously much stronger than people were anticipating last year, clearly, and what that means moving forward. So still some strong growth, obviously, when it comes to GDP.
Lisa, when we leave for the day, we're done.
Yeah.
Jess sticks around because she has to work on
That's right. At my day
stories
job.
for
and the weekend
and
right.
next week.
That's right.
What real quick, what are you working on?
Yeah, so we actually have an earnings watch column coming out tomorrow that Elena Popina is putting together. So this is Gina Martin Adams at Bloomberg Intelligence, what they're foreseeing coming in for fourth quarter specifically. So the estimates for that outlook for S&P 500 earnings growth is around 1%. This does come after the third quarter did in those three consecutive contraction quarters when the S&P 500 was in an earnings recession. So it's coming out of that. But the big thing, it's in particular when it comes to the Magnificent Seven and the growth stocks and tech stocks, their earnings growth has been so gangbuster. And actually, the growth is supposed to be around 22% for 2024. So that's obviously more than double for the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is supposed to have earnings growth of around 11% this year. But when it comes to the tech giants, it's supposed to narrow more this year, just given the base effects, because the earnings were so strong the last few quarters because of cost-cutting efforts that really helped their operating margins. So that really ties into what the future of the stock price is going to tell you. So that's going to be key to see, can those tech companies keep up with some of those projections for the earnings growth, or whether or not those need to be adjusted.
Well, it's funny, we just had an analyst on yesterday who called it the Magnificent Five.
Right.
Magnificent
There's so many
Seven.
different names. It was Fang, and then now now we're at the 7, and then I think some people want to throw Netflix back in there now, and then there's going to need to be a name for the 8. It gets
She does it all. Jess Menton, our markets reporter. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Thanks
You
for
too.
stopping by.
It's always a blast.
And that brings us to 11:10 on Wall Street. Lisa, my favorite segment.
Ooh, yay.
Focus on Munis, being brought to you by Build America Mutual, insuring U.S. municipal bonds that finance essential American infrastructure and providing guaranteed income to improve any portfolio. Be part of Building America. Invest in BAM insured bonds. Well, there's a booming corner of the municipal bond market that is poised to topple the long-standing dominance of mutual funds. Yes, a shakeup in Muniland. Fortunately, we have just the guy to explain this to us. Eric Kazatsky is the senior municipal bond strategist with Bloomberg Intelligence. What are these separately managed accounts? How are they shaking up Muniland?
Hey, good morning. Look, there's nothing new when it comes to separately managed accounts. I think it's just what's getting attention in our space is how much money they're actually taking from mutual funds. And mostly it's driven by fees, right? Average fee on a muni mutual fund is 30, 40 basis points. Average fee on a separately managed account, mid to low single digits. So people last year who were dealing with bond losses were looking for ways to sort of save on fees. Separately managed accounts were certainly an area that they were looking into, and they actually spoke with their wallets. And for the third year in a row, significant gains in that space.
Hey, Eric, break it down for us. So how have muni mutual funds been performing?
I mean, performance is really across the board because they're so varied by strategy. But when we look at muni mutual funds, the one key metric that most people in our space look for are inflows or outflows. And last year was pretty flat when it comes to people actually putting money to work in mutual funds. Conversely, what we did see is that a lot of money went into separately managed accounts, which, again, for the third year in a row, significant growth. And just to sort of give some context about how big that space has become, it was about 0% of the market 10 years ago. By all measures, and it could be a little bit opaque when it comes to exact data, we could be as high as 25% of the total muni market are sitting in separately managed accounts right now. So pretty significant.
Are these just for rich people?
No, they're not for rich people. John, you can open one today if you want. Minimums are as low as $50,000, I've heard.
You're saying I'm not
look,
rich?
It makes it challenging.
Okay, whatever. Lisa, you pick it up, because I'm shocked.
I love it. So I wanted to banks. They put out their muni forecast, correct? So about how much are they predicting for muni sales in 2024?
I've seen numbers from 300 to 500 billion, really across the board. We're predicting just for state of the good order in the municipal space, to keep the lights on, we need about 430 billion of issuance. And that's really just teeing up new issue supply coming in with demand coming back to the market. And on the demand side, that's really principal and interest coming back to investors in mutual funds, in ETFs, in separately managed accounts and individual bond holdings that they're going to look to reinvest and get tax-exempt income again.
All right, let's switch gears here. Does everybody remember Jefferson County, Alabama? They're back in the. They went bust, by the way.
Okay, they're back.
I guess they were selling the statue downtown, and in bank. I don't know. I don't even know how that works, but they're back in the market. Why, in God's name, would anybody give them any money?
You know what? You could ask the same question about Puerto Rico or Detroit, right? I think the good thing about the municipal space is that, the memories seem to be a little bit short-lived and forgiveness seems to be plentiful. Look, what happened with Jefferson County, Alabama, the first time around really was focused around, bad derivatives, bad swaps that they got into or shouldn't have been in the first place. The deal that was just structured, certainly a far cry from where we were as far as structuring products in 2008. So I think much better from a strength standpoint and a security standpoint. And the market was very receptive of that.
Hey, Rick, with this shift from tightening to easing in 2024, how is that going to affect the muni market?
You know what? I think a lot of people are poised for several Fed cuts coming into this year. I know our rate strategist isn't exactly on board with that sort of thinking, but it certainly seems from a flow standpoint and a valuation standpoint that buying has been plentiful and people are positioning their portfolios to take advantage if that shift does come from the Fed.
Before we delve into what Ira is eating in the background, instead of munis, why don't I just buy treasuries at this point?
You know what? That is a very good question, and we get asked that a lot. And, if you look at just a traditional valuation metric, which is just the ratio of a AAA muni to a U.S. Treasury, on paper, they don't make a lot of sense. But I think the real analysis comes when you get away from AAA municipals, because really the bulk of our market is single A and double A paper. And you look at that on an after-tax basis versus corporates. And, you know, a chart that we look at all the time shows that you could pick up almost 200 basis points by holding a municipal bond versus a corporate. And frankly, the default rate on municipals is statistically insignificant and much, much less with corporate bonds going into any kind of economic slowdown period.
What sort of deals are out there that really catch your attention? I mean, wacky stuff, monorails or anything like that?
You know, nothing crazy that's in the pipeline. I think it's refreshing to see new entrants in the marketplace in the high yield space, like First Eagle, being headed by John Miller, who left Nuveen. To me, that signals that there's going to be, you know, at least a decent new issuance flow in the high yield and sort of those speculative credit space for them to launch a new product in this environment. So there's probably stuff that we could talk about later in the year, but nothing right now. As far as spread, the Jefferson County, Alabama is probably the more interesting thing that we've seen in quite some time.
And who's in danger of going down that route that they went down, bankruptcy at this point? Do you see, is there significant risk of default anywhere?
You know what? No. Off the top of my head and looking sort of, you know, at all the metrics that we look at on a daily basis, nothing from a spread standpoint that would indicate risk is being priced into the market with any sort of significance right now. You know, when we did our outlooks for 2024, the areas that we are, you know, I would say like more skeptical about are going to be senior housing and also higher ed. And when the higher ed comes into play, I think for us, it's really a risk of, you know, Congress coming in and looking at their tax exemption status on the heels of everything that's gone on in the last several months.
And I'm not going to let you go until you answer my question. What's going on in New Jersey with the, what is it, the Mall of...
The Mall of America. Mall of America? No, American Dream.
American Dream Mall.
American Dream
is
Mall.
that still some investor's dream, or is that just completely turned into a nightmare? We've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, look, obviously it's in default, you know, workout scenario type situation, but, you know, people are still going and money's still coming into the mall. You know, I think it was just an ambitious project at the wrong time in the wrong place, but, you know, history is going to sort of dictate what's going to happen with that going forward.
And they got that great Ferris wheel that you can get on.
Have you been there?
Good
and
God,
indoor
no.
skiing, they have it all.
Oh,
yeah.
and indoor skiing.
My son did the skiing
Yeah.
there, yes.
And he turned out okay?
And
He
he's
didn't
still
break his
going.
leg or anything
He's
like
still
that?
going. But I haven't been there. Not
But
at
I
all.
love the fact that you can ride the Ferris wheel and get a great view of the swamp. Eric Kozatsky, Senior Municipal Bond Strategist with Bloomberg Intelligence, everything muni. And as we look at markets right now, the equity markets, S&P 500, 2 points higher. 4782 on the index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average right now 176 points lower. That's down 0.5%. The Nasdaq 100 up 26 points. That is up 0.2%. Didn't get answer to my question what he was eating in the background there, but it looked delicious. You're listening to Bloomberg Markets. I'm John.
Let's see what else is going on here. What's PB saying? Let's tune in. I'm just taking y'all with me everywhere this morning. I guess we can't tune in. Who else we tuning into?
Florida State Parks Foundation, the Fort Mose Historical Society, and Florida State Park.
I wanted to hear about the weather.
But don't take my word for it. We'll see. We'll see. You know, but I do think this last 2 weeks has been a lot.
Huh. Can you see this yet? Oh, maybe if I had to go in.
But I cannot respect you've got.
Yeah, maybe if I did that.
I'm not letting them do shows on AI in China. And so I can just visualize you as a heart surgeon in the middle of a heart surgery. He's telling all the nurses jokes, and this one we messed up.
Oops.
This one's gone. It's not going to work.
You don't need this. You know what? It's just your heart.
I want to be a comedian. So, heart surgeon, you would assume you're doing well for yourself. You're making money. You got respect. You've gone to school. Then you take the risk to go be a comedian. And you don't just become a regular comedian. A third of your country is listening to you. You got 40 million, give or take, weekly listeners to your show. And then you're being invited all over the place. And then recently, some of you may recognize him because of the podcast or the show that he did with Piers Morgan, which the angle he took was very different, satire, comedy. It almost confused Piers. It was so confusing that Piers had to get on a plane to go to L.A. at the comedy club to interview him. And it was a great encounter back and forth. Yep. Gave a different perspective to everybody. But today, we have in the flesh Bassem Youssef. How are you, sir?
Hello. From the other side. Can you hear it? I'm a little bit under the influence.
Yeah.
And the influence meaning that I'm still under heavy pain medication.
How long did you've been traveling? 48 hours.
So just in 5 days.
5 days.
In 5 days. I took the plane from LA to Dubai for 48 hours. And then I went from Dubai to Boston for 36 hours for another shows in Arabic and Kenyan. Then went from Boston to Dubai again for another.
Oh my God.
And then that was less than 24 hours. And then I took the flight from Dubai to Miami. I just landed yesterday.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then you're performing.
And I'm performing tonight.
Tonight and tomorrow.
And after tomorrow.
And after tomorrow.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the Miami Improv.
So you're fired up, is what you're saying.
I am so excited, but I cannot hide it.
Yeah, it's very.
I'm just kidding.
So I got a question for you. I mean, seriously, like before we got a lot of things we're going to get into. I want your thoughts on a lot of different stories, and whether it's some current events, your background, politics. We'll talk Israel. We'll talk Palestine. We'll talk Egypt. We'll talk all that stuff. What was the turning point for you? Like, did people always know you were funny? Like when I.
Been a half foot of snow, 6 inches or more here in Chicago. But on the south side, we have a very wet system that brings rain to waterlogged systems and this triggering of severe weather once again. We might be lacking in some cases on instability. The threat's still there, and you can't let down your guard on a situation like this. Going over the weather conditions in this particular storm, you start to look at the alerts, and that gives you an idea of how serious it is. So many states involved in this. Earlier this week, it was 49 out of 50, right? Ironically, North Dakota had been left out. But here we go again. Some of the same states that had these same alerts double down. But this storm becomes a little more potent. It packs just a little bit more of a punch. For the conditions here in Chicago, a real lesson this morning. Anybody who thought they were going to get out and about for the early side of this, maybe get a half day of work in on a Friday, not happening probably for folks as the snow is already accumulating and sticking on the ground. Even if we get that warm portion of the storm working its way in, changes over the loop, maybe Chicago loop, to a rain or washes away some of this snow, the worst of it's coming after 2 o'clock this afternoon. That's when we really start and get going with the near blizzard conditions that we could potentially see. As we look at this storm, there are several different components to it. We talked here about Chicago. You talk about Milwaukee. Milwaukee hasn't seen a blizzard in 5 years either. This is their second big snow of the week coming in. I want to bring in Stephen Morgan. He's back in Studio W. The analysts that we're doing here, analysis that we're doing here on this storm with the Forecast Center does show that we've got plenty of real estate here covered. Many parts in the Midwest are getting really their second layer of snow.
It's true. In fact, we have 7 states that have blizzard warnings this morning, and that number this morning has been increasing. And we look at, as you're in Chicago, a city like Des Moines. The past 10 years, Des Moines has gone under a blizzard warning only 3 times, and now this is the 4th one. And it's a similar story in Cedar Rapids, too. Blizzard warnings in effect there, too. Some video that we have, you're looking live right now in Milwaukee, but out of Iowa City, Iowa, Some were calling it Star Wars snow, Amy, and it might remind some of when that Millennium Falcon was about to jump into hyperspace. That was the type of snow that we were dealing with, and this has been the occurring or recurring thing this morning. Des Moines is on pace to have quite a snowy week, in fact. When we're looking at some of the numbers, as of 6 o'clock this morning, nearly 4 inches of snow has fallen. The Waterloo Airport picked up 2 inches. Since December 1st, more than a foot of snow has fallen. The average is about 10.9 inches, so we're already at a surplus. And when you consider what we've been dealing with in the Midwest, upper Midwest, it's been on the warmer side. So to see how just this week alone Des Moines has picked up on it, but that's just a small piece of the pie here. When we're looking at what Des Moines is dealing with, we have a blizzard warning in effect for the majority of the state of Iowa. As this low begins to crank, as it approaches Chicago, gets a little closer to the lakefront, the center of this low, we're really going to see those winds begin to increase. Any snow that will fall in Iowa is going to blow and drift. And that's what's going to make it so difficult and complicated with this blizzard that we're going to see through the Midwest. But Amy, it's a wide swath, right? All the way north into Minneapolis, we have alerts, down into Kansas City as well.
Yeah, and the analogy there of the Star Wars effect really nails it, because that's the blinding, driving type of snow that becomes so difficult for us to really deal with as far as traveling or doing anything else. You know, the location that we're at is quite near where we're expecting the rain snow line to happen. Chicago's actually had snow every day this week, but because it's been just a little bit of snow and hasn't amounted to much, and we've had mixing come back in, it hasn't really been that impressive. This storm is going to be different. As we bear down on this, we've got team coverage with it, and Fox weather correspondent Robert Ray is near me, not far. He's near Lake Michigan to take a look at this storm as it comes in. Already, we've had about 700 flight disruptions. They've had a ground stop at O'Hare. This is an early start. We talked last night, Robert, about the potential of people trying to get a half-day work in for Chicago. I don't think it's a good idea, because what comes later this afternoon is much worse than this, and you don't want to get stuck out in it.
That's bad.
Yeah, big time, Amy. You don't want to get stuck. And by the way, look at Lake Michigan right now at the museum campus, just roaring. The waves coming up. Check this out. Up here, I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to kind of walk the line as quickly and tightly as I can. But Lake Michigan is furious right now. And this is what this winter weather storm is doing to the lakefront right now. Watch this. This is going to be a big one. Boom. Check that out. Wow. I'm going to make my way up to the camera. We got snow in the past 2 hours. We were not expecting this overperformance of this storm to be like this. We're expecting more rain here this morning, and this to turn into snow later in the day. But this storm has come in with a vengeance. Absolutely moving into the city western suburbs, getting hammered right now with blizzard conditions in some spots. We've had wind gusts over 20 miles an hour here in Chicago this morning. As you see, I gotta say, 2 inches probably, maybe even a little bit more, as these waves continue to come in. And this is the Shed Aquarium behind me. Again, museum campus. Maybe you hear those sirens in the back. The streets are just a mess right now. And the over 200 plows and snow trucks are doing their best to get the salt down and these streets plowed out. A lot of the schools are canceled. They're doing remote learning. And this is just the beginning, as you see the snow sideways coming off Lake Michigan, whipping into the Windy City here this morning. O'Hare International Airport, FAA, ground stop. Nothing's coming in, nothing's coming out. This is dangerous. It seems to be, as I was talking last hour with meteorologist Bob Van Dillen, to be overperforming at this point, at least on the lakefront. So dangerous scenarios. If you don't have to go out, gosh, please don't. Honestly, this is going to be a long haul into tonight, overnight, into tomorrow morning. Winter storm warning until noon tomorrow. We'll see if it gets upgraded, potentially in some spots, to a blizzard warning as it continues. But Amy, wow, right? We wanted winter, here we go.
Yeah, you mentioned the near blizzard conditions that could develop here. That comes in later this afternoon into this evening. What follows all of this is a reinforcement of that Arctic cold that reminds me of just last winter, Robert, when you were in a similar position and you watched that Arctic sea ice come across Lake Michigan.
Great point. Great point. All of this, these huge breakers that are coming up here, these waves, in a couple days, the city's going into a plunge. 0 degrees will be like the high for basically 3 days with wind chills 20, 30, 40 below. And what we're going to see is that Arctic sea smoke here on Lake Michigan, and that's caused from the fact that the lake temperatures are about 40 degrees, atmosphere much colder, and you have that effect. It's just remarkable. And I have to say right now, these wind gusts that are coming across and the snow, it's heavy. It almost feels like when you're standing on a beach during a hurricane and you're getting sandblasted. That's how this feels. It's not a good scene. And that's why I'm telling people, don't go out into these elements. And Amy, we're going to head into the Chicago Loop here after we're done with this report and see exactly how commuters are doing, if indeed people have to go to work this morning. And I sure hope they don't, Amy.
I'm Amy Freeze. Welcome to Fox Weather's YouTube.
Getting bad out there, folks. Buckle up for a cold winter. He's right, though. We asked for winter. Discord, roger that. I'm in Discord. That's what they're saying now.
Make no mistake about it, they commit national suicide. Those 18,000 Palestinians who used to work in Israel, they better get their resumes together because they're not coming back to Israel anytime soon. Gazan Palestinians are now going to become wards of the international community, living on humanitarian assistance, not unlike the Arabs in Syria, in Idlib. And nobody thought they would do that. And Hamas officials are giving interviews and they're saying things like, well, we don't want to live, we just want to kill. And no one really,
All right, just because of time, we're going to have to wrap it up. Yuri Kaufman, author of 18 Days in October, the Yom Kippur War, How It Created the Modern Middle East. Let me give you a quote on crude oil. We'll start with the international benchmark, which is Brent. That's up, 1.6% right now, up $1.22. Below 80, though, at 78.62. And West Texas, that's up 1.5%, 73.09 a barrel. You are listening to Bloomberg Markets.
Five times.
Yep.
Thrown some stuff.
Yep. But I mean, this is outside of the kind of the electronic. And
Yo, what's up, bro?
What up, man?
How the fuck are you still awake?
Bro. So, the crazy thing is, the VAA can't even answer that. Yeah, there's days I'll stay awake for days at a time.
Man, fuck that. That was me last week.
Yeah, that's been me since I came back from Afghanistan, really. Iraq made it worse and becoming a civilian. I don't know. Now I'm just like, I don't need sleep. I didn't do nothing, and now my brain's just like running 10 million miles an hour.
Nah. That's what you get for taking that Sudafed medicine.
That too.
Taking meth over there.
That day, that Dayquil at fucking like 9 p.m. was not the best idea.
Yeah, most of them have caffeine in it, so you're fucking nuts.
I wasn't thinking. I was just thinking, I'm sick. I need medicine.
Yo, I'm about to try that Fossil Island stuff if you want to join.
Oh, okay. I'm over here cutting teaks. About 21k XP so far.
I'm hoping I can AFK it a little bit because I got to work on some property shit.
Yeah, I've been AFK and teak logs and doing agility on my Iron Man. Watching Bloomberg news and shit in the market.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah. This is like my normal morning, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stream it today. So we're streaming live right now.
Oh shit! Don't let me get you demonetized now.
I demonetized my own self.
Alright, so
right now the urban areas are the ones that are primarily focused on it, but this map is a light
yeah,
map.
fuck yeah.
So as
That
those
shit the
locals
lowest dick.
open one up,
What's
it'll
it like
be
out there right
populated
now
in
for
those areas. Yes, ma'am.
It's not too bad. It's like 30 degrees, but the wind is gusting at like 40.
4 pieces of information that the public needs to know. And the more that you and others can publish information where people can do one click
Fuck that,
on where
man.
warming center is.
I don't miss that area at all. Like, we used to get the snow from that lake. Or, I think it was that lake.
Edm.texas.gov/warm. Works on your mobile device as well.
Yo, so, if you don't have Lumberjack, do you have a Serpentine helm?
The winter storms we've had in the past couple of years. I mean, how serious is this?
Alright, so you might need to bring an anti-poison.
See, that just don't sound fun now. That don't sound AFK anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think there's, like, some of the spots, like, because it's in, like, a line. The trees or whatever, the mushrooms.
Yeah.
And on some of them, they attack you, but not all of them. So it's 100k and AXP an hour if you're paying attention. So surely if you AFK it, it'll be better in Teaks.
Oh shit. I barely got my attention focused on teaks. I'm at 45k an hour.
That's not bad though.
Yeah. I've just been doing everything else. Like, I'm doing the fucking looking at the market, watching the news, fucking making my coffee, fucking finding out about my daughter because she's coming over today, how she's doing. I got a lot going on too.
You've been banking them at least? That way you get the level up your construction?
Nope. Don't give a fuck. I'm not walking. This is for the bingo board. I'm just taking a hit.
Yeah. That one teleport puts you close though.
Castle. You can just do the Castle Wars ring over and over again. I just don't think it's worth the money.
Oh, I was talking about the Taliban trio or whatever.
Oh. I got you. I'm over by the Castle Wars.
Look that.
No one's out here though.
So you coming or what? I'm in your world.
Fuck, I just don't want to get poisoned and have to deal with that. It's been so
You're good,
peaceful.
man.
It's been so peaceful over here. Oh, I hit 30 agility. I can go to Varrock now. Get out of here. What's up? See? I just hate places where I get poisoned because then that's just like takes away my AFK. Cause I'm just fucking. I will not look at that very often. I'm at 19 marks of grace. Oh man. If only I could have a lot more, a lot faster. That'd be nice.
man. It's been so long. I'm trying to remember even how to fucking do this.
So I probably would have already died while you're trying to figure it out.
Nah, nothing's attacking me right now.
Looking to be, I think oftentimes people think with severe weather warnings, oh, I'll be fine, you know. So what's your message to Texans about the severity of this one in particular?
This is basically a polar vortex that's descending upon Texas. There's one of the coldest episodes we'll have been through. It's different than Winter Storm Uri.
Listen to Greg Abbott talk about how bad this is about to hit Texas.
One is that it will not last as long as Winter Storm Uri. Also, in Winter Storm Uri, there were
in a polar
times
vortex.
when almost, if not the entirety of the state of Texas, was under cloud cover, and it made it more difficult for
don't say that, man.
the
Fuck.
power fleet
He
to
just
be
said
operational. And so, what people should expect is this, and that is that this will be one of the coldest episodes they will have lived through in the state of Texas.
This is going to be one of the coldest episodes you've ever lived through in the state of Texas.
It will not be anything close to what we experienced during Winter Storm Uri. And I could emphasize we're much more prepared for this than we were for Winter Storm Uri.
And Governor, if I can add, is those that may have to work outside, this is dangerous cold.
Right.
I mean, you look at the Panhandle all the way down into Midland, Abilene, cross over to the Waco area. It's going to be 80 to 90 hours of below freezing. It's not getting above freezing. You're going to have, as this front comes in, the wind chills are going to bring down, and then the wind chills won't be as...
How the fuck do I do this?
But anything that is left outside or going to be outside will freeze. And I think that's unusual for a lot of Texans.
My question is not a lot.
When you get to Michael's question, can you also address the remark he made about shooting illegal aliens?
Sure.
Especially given the mental health components you guys have talked well about.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We're starting at questions. All right, we have time for those two questions.
All right. So,
Fuck off.
with regard to what's
Thanks
going
so
on,
fucking goddamn annoying.
in Eagle Pass, right? Yeah. So, Texas has the legal authority to control ingress and egress into any geographic location in the state of Texas, and that authority is being asserted with regard to that park in Eagle Pass, Texas, to maintain operational control of it. With regard to your question, listen.
It's probably a good thing you didn't come.
Ask a question to legally distinguish between what Texas has the legal authority to do and what would be illegal to do. And I explained in detail all the different things that Texas is doing that we have the legal authority to do, and pointed out what would be illegal to do. It's that simple.
You remember in a tongue-in-cheek remark that someone like the El Paso shooter could seize a phone?
Absolutely not. Yeah, and I was asked to point out where the line is drawn about what would be illegal, and I pointed out something that is obviously illegal. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So that briefing wrapping up with Texas officials as they held that winter weather briefing. As we've been told by our content partners over at Fox Weather, and even hearing in this briefing, temperatures are expected to drop and people are expected to prepare. And if you all remember the winter storm for a few years ago, they were not prepared. But hearing from the governor, he says, don't worry about getting what happened last time. This time, I guess we'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
Right now, I want to show you some of the many live images we have coming
Yeah, they
through
say in Texas
our
about getting
studio
cold as
here
fuck,
on
bro.
Live Now from Fox. On your screen, a live
Fuck
look
that,
out
yeah.
there at Racine, Wisconsin.
It's supposed to be like 12 degrees and shit on Sunday, or a low.
Information giving you another live look. This one out of Chicago. Road conditions are pretty hectic out there. They're clear at this hour.
You know us Texas people ain't cut out for that shit.
On the ground,
I
but
told my
city
mom
workers
stay
have
inside,
been
like, do
working
not go
around the
outside.
clock with those snowplow machines.
Oh shit, I thought she was up there with you, man.
Clear the roadways.
Yeah, she's
At
still in
last
Ranger
check,
right
we
now.
were told there was a 2-hour
Oh, that poor soul.
ground stop
Yeah, working
at
on
the
getting her out of
airport.
there.
And at last check, hundreds upon hundreds of delays and even cancellations. So if you are heading to the airport in the Midwest. Before you get on the roads, just go ahead and look at your apps. Make sure you haven't gotten an email, because you do not want to be one of these people stuck at the airport. You'd rather be stuck at your hotel with some heat and some food than to be stuck at the airport where workers might not even be coming in to work at some of those concession and vending places. I'm Jeanne Francine. It's 11:41 on the East Coast. Let's go to our third 2-minute commercial break, and when we come back, continuing with top stories and headlines of the day.
With the debut, we also had something of a price, or at least a fee war among the majors. What happened there?
We, in the words of Eric Balchunas from Bloomberg Intelligence, we had about 2 years of a fee war condensed into just a couple of days. Issuers were already cutting prices on these products before they even got out the gate. And we're talking about extremely low numbers. I mean, the lowest price was Bitwise's spot Bitcoin ETF at 20 basis points. I believe Franklin Templeton one up them just today and is now 19 basis points. So we're just seeing this march lower and lower. And there's a lot more urgency to this fee war. I mean, fee wars are really common in the ETF industry. This one is a little bit different and a little bit more urgent because all of them launched at the same time and they all hold the exact same thing. So how do you stand out? And the answer so far seems to be by just trying to offer the lowest price possible.
And some of them are doing it only for a few months, and then those fees will start to kick in.
That's the other thing. That's one of the sort of marketing gimmicks that's come about, is that, a lot of the issuers are just waiving fees altogether for the first 6 or 12 months. Invesco, BlackRock, ARK, and 21 Shares are some of the firms that are doing that. That's an interesting move, because if you think about the bull case for these products, who's actually going to buy these spot Bitcoin ETFs, the answer has been RIAs. It's been those sort of institutional players who maybe didn't want to handle the futures funds, and they're not going to go out and buy Bitcoin, just direct Bitcoin. They don't really care about waivers. What they're really concerned with is the eventual fee, since that's what they'll be charging year after year after year. The fact that they're waiving fees suggests that perhaps these issuers have just pure play retail in mind, people just buying this in their brokerage accounts.
Okay, so if mom and pop want to dip their toe in the waters, is it safe? Are the
this is not AFK at all. You have to do a certain fucking path.
How to opine on that? I will say the fact that the SEC finally gave
and it's
their
not
blessing.
it's not like
my fault.
Your Bitcoin or your money with a platform like FTX.
Well,
no doubt.
You think about all the issues with FTX that
shit for the fucking team, man.
These are spot Bitcoin ETFs, and when it comes to having to deal with digital wallets, things like that, storage, having to manage your keys, that is all taken out of the equation. That's being handled by the issuer. So that removes that headache. And that's why, a lot of advocates have been saying this is a game changer, that this will open up a new class of investors to come into Bitcoin. Maybe they haven't wanted to worry about all the
it burns some logs while you're cutting, so you don't have to drop as often.
People that we talk to too in the business. What's the reaction? I mean, are investors getting involved? I read something, was it yesterday or the day before, that Vanguard said, you know what, we're not doing this on our site. So what's the reaction that you're hearing?
Vanguard is an interesting one, and some of the brokerages saying no, Vanguard sort of leading the way there, has been really interesting to watch. I will say Vanguard, if you know Vanguard's personality as a firm, it's not too surprising. I mean, a few months ago I asked them, you haven't filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF application, do you have any plans to? And they said no. Absolutely not. Probably not surprising. We'll see if some of the other brokerages follow suit. I mean, they're available. They are trading on a lot of the brokerages, Schwab included, at this point. So it'll be interesting to see if some of the other brokerages follow Vanguard's lead or they take the Schwab route.
Okay, minute left. What's the next big event in crypto land?
I'm really looking forward to the 3-day weekend, I gotta say. That'll be
that's
pretty
not
fun.
crypto land. That's you.
In crypto land, we haven't gotten full flow data for these funds. That will probably take until later today or Tuesday. We know the trading volume was really high. It's going to be interesting to see what that actually translated into in terms of money coming into these funds.
Don't you love it? She was just like standing out in the hall. We needed a guest.
She did.
There's Katie. Grab her.
What's your fire making level?
This works too.
Well, tell her we said, yeah, right. Katie Greifeld, everything, a Bitcoin ETF. Let me give a couple of quotes.
My Iron Man 75.
I was about to bring you the fucking stuff to make it, but you need 85 and it's untradeable.
Oh. Well, I appreciate it, sir.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, my Iron
It comes
Man
in handy.
85 before my fucking main does.
Good luck, though. You got to get it from Cerberus, one of the pieces.
Ooh.
Oh, shit, that thing went up in price. The smoldering stone used to be like $1 million. Now it's like 4.5.
Probably because everybody doing redwoods.
Yeah, maybe. Fucking wild. Everything's changed, man, since I played.
For real. I remember when it was all about having skills was cool. Being a skiller was a cool guy. Now it's like, you solo the fucking hardest raid in the world by yourself? Dude, I could cut trees. I remember fucking he asked me, what game do you think you're playing? I'm like, the one where I started fucking 20 years ago, that one.
The iShares Bitcoin Trust today, down 5 3/4%. What's the other big one? We'll do the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. That's BTC. That is 6% lower right now. As for Bitcoin, that is down 5% right now, 43,839 per token. You're listening to Bloomberg Markets. I'm John Tucker, along with Lee.
Yeah, I think he started way before I did.
Right
Shit.
now, let's get an update.
Yeah, me and
Company
Josh
news.
started
And for that, here's Steve Rappaport.
John, we have
We
shares
gotta
of
talk to
Citigroup
a
down
friend who
now
started
less than
Ranger
1.5%.
and
That's after
Artery.
the firm announced it will eliminate
on our bus.
20,000
That's when we
jobs.
spread it around
The cuts are
everybody.
part of CEO Jane Fraser's strategy
Who's
to boost
that?
returns. Citi expects to
I
save
forgot
$2.5
his actual name.
billion.
I remember we
But
called
in the
him
meantime,
Sunshine,
the
so we
firm
watched
will
Rivers
incur
Live
as
with
much as $1
blonde-haired
billion
blonde.
because of severance and
Blonde-haired,
expenses related to
blonde-haired.
Fraser's
Forgot his name.
overhaul. BlackRock makes a big play for a piece of a growing market. Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini has details.
On here.
BlackRock has agreed to buy
I don't
global
remember.
infrastructure
I thought it was that
partners
nerdy
GIP for
fucking
about
glasses
$12.5
dude.
billion bucks, and BlackRock
I
will
forget
pay
his name
$3
too,
billion
shit.
in cash
A lot of
and about
those.
12 million shares worth about $9.5
Yeah.
billion at yesterday's price. And that deal is expected to close in the third quarter. This catapults the world's biggest money manager into the top ranks of investors that make long-term bets on energy, transportation, and digital infrastructure. The acquisition of GIP, which manages about $100 billion, is the biggest deal in more than a decade for BlackRock. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks, Denise. Shares of BlackRock down less than 1%.
Oh, you're not talking about Dylan, are you?
Is stepping up scrutiny of two telecom companies. Bloomberg's Gina Cervetti reports.
The EPA is ramping up its inquiry of telecom
I was about to
giants
say, I think he
AT&T
played
and
for a little bit,
Verizon
but
after an investigation
that's the only
found
blonde-haired
that
kid I
old
can think of.
lead-covered cables had contaminated waterways and soil in parts of the U.S. A trade group that represents both companies said test results continue to show that telecom lead-covered cables pose no significant public health risk.
Thanks, Gina. Shares of AT&T and Verizon stock are up less than 2%. I'm Steve Rappaport, and this is Bloomberg.
Try to do this without sound. See how much work I can get done.
There's a lot going on my stream right now.
What happened?
I just have a lot going on. If you looked at it, there's just a lot.
No, I wish I'm looking at property boundaries right now.
Oh, that sounds
good. It can be entertaining. Like, people have weird ass fucking names, but the sheer volume of finding property values for like a 1,300 mile project is fucking exhausting.
I believe it. What are you doing it for?
We're running a project in like the summertime, underneath our power lines or whatever, and we got to make sure the owners match up to our data, so we can call them and tell them we're about to come onto their property and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm putting together this list. I think it's 16,000 people so far.
Damn.
Yeah, it's fun times.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller on Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, now John Tucker, along with Lisa Mateo, and for Matt and Paul. As we look at markets right now, S&P 500, 6 points lower. That's down about 0.1%. 40.73 on the index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 204 points lower. The NASDAQ 100 is down 23 points. That's down about 0.1%. And it is 11:55.
So after you got 100%, how strict were they with you? Like,
world and national headlines. Amy,
if you were doing something that breaks your fucking...
Good morning, Amy.
Thank you, John. The U.S. and UK have...
For example, if like your back's fucked up, if they catch you at the gym, are they gonna fuck with you?
Nah, bro. So pretty much, I got sent out of the military with 100%. Like, I left the military knowing I was getting 100% total and permanent. So I went straight to the VA and I was like, hey, what can I do? And I was like, because when my back feels a little bit better, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out. I was like, even if I'm not fixed, I was like, I don't give a fuck. And they're like, ha ha ha, no you're fucking not. And I was like, I'm going to work too. I plan on making money. And they're like, well, you can make as much money as you fucking want. And I was like, cool. Then it got to a point where I was running that fucking marathon. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? And I was like, bro, I'm doing this fucking marathon, whether you like it or not. And they're like, well, this could fuck with your disability. I was like, go for it. I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm running this marathon. I don't care if it breaks my back or anything. And like, well, and one of the doctors asked me, they go, what are you going to do if you finish this marathon and they take your 100%? I was like, I'm going to ask for my special forces contract. And then I went into the fucking evals and they looked at me and go, here's your total and permanent, sir. You go have a good day and do what you want.
So, how are they fucking with you, though? Like, how they even know you're doing the marathon?
Because I was actively at the doctors, and they were telling me, this is a very bad idea. You're going to hurt yourself.
Oh, so you, like, willfully told them about it?
Well, yeah, like, they're like, what are you doing to therapy your back? So I was going to physical therapy. I was going to MRIs, chiropractor. And they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm running. And they're like, why are you running? And I was like, because I have to. And because my blood pressure was going insane. Like, it was fucking, I was sitting there folding towels and my blood pressure shot through the fucking roof like I was having a fucking heart attack, but I was perfectly fine. So I started running and it calmed it down. And then the running got out of hand. And then, well, now I'm hurt again thanks to all the running. And they were right. But I was right too. Because I did a marathon and then a half marathon, so fuck them. But yeah, like, through all the time of me doing the runs, it just proved to everybody that I'm fucked up. Yeah, I can push through it. I think that's the only thing I proved to myself is that I can push through this pain, but it hurts. I can still do everything, but can I do it at a paratrooper level? Fuck no. You know,
Yeah, that's what gets me. It's like, I can do everything, but I'm going to pay for it the next day.
Yeah, 100% over. Like I'm thinking about getting an ice bath outside because this is getting ridiculous of me just waking up in the pain. Like I understand that there's not a lot left in my gas tank.
Yeah, I feel you on that, man.
They even gave me a 100% disability card. Like it says indefinitely 100% totally permanent disabled.
Yeah. I feel you though, man. It fucking blows. Like people will brag about their deadlifts and like you're like, all right, that ain't nothing. I haven't done deadlift in like 3 years and I can still do 500 plus. And they're like, no fucking way. And you're like, all right, I'm gonna be hurting tomorrow, but let's get this.
See, I went straight to calisthenics. I've been doing a shit ton of calisthenics. I took a break lately because of my back. I'm starting to get into more. Like it's so much more helpful for us because we're already used to doing a shit ton of push-ups no matter what, and push-ups are a big part of calisthenics. But like with our bodies, how they're breaking down, we need more secondary muscle fiber growth than we do primary muscle fiber growth. Due to we need to hold our bodies together.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like when you go to a gym and you look at all the age groups, which ones do you think you're a part of?
The fucking old motherfuckers now, man.
Exactly. We have to understand that that's who we are. We can't be deadlifting no 300 pounds now. We gotta go at it like I'm gonna do 225 for a shit ton of sets.
Yo, but I shit you not. So I work out at Planet Fitness, right? But there's no like hardcore gyms in my town. So like all the roided out motherfuckers go to Planet Fitness. So there's a dude that looks like.
Years, by the way.
Huh?
I worked at Planet Fitness for almost 2 years now.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, there's a dude that looks like fucking Master Roshi, like bald motherfucker, short, but just fucking jacked.
That's fucking great.
And you're like, all right, maybe I'm part of that group now.
Yeah, like that's where we are. But like, you know what got Master Roshi that strong? Calisthenics.
No, fucking Trend got him that strong.
Training calisthenics, pushing boulders and shit around, not fucking doing the normal weightlifting, tear your shoulder out,
Yeah, that motherfucker though sweats, and he sweats out steroids though.
Yeah, when I was working at Planet Fitness, we had a couple of guys like that. It was funny because I could tell all the kids too. I'm like, "What are you on?" And they're like, "What do you mean? I'm not on shit." I'm like, "Bro, I was your age once, and I watched all my friends do it. What do you want?" And like they try to fool me. I'm like, "You ain't fooling me, dude. You can't bullshit a bullshitter." Like, yeah, I work at Planet Fitness, but I've been around some pretty hard motherfuckers who actually did shit like steroids and shit. And you're taking something fucking skimmy that's gonna hurt you, like that trend shit, whatever. They've been taking like that and mixing it with other shit.
Nah, if you do it right, it's not bad.
Well, these fucking 18-year-olds ain't doing it right. They ain't doing none of that shit right. They're triple dosing because they think it gives them power. None of them know how to fucking properly use moderation. Because we didn't at that age. I remember taking Jack 3D before a combat mission and nearly dying.
Yeah, y'all are the people that got it fucking banned doing the PT test on like 4 scoops and shit.
That shit rocked it. Like, look, I'm wearing my infantry PT shirt right now to prove. I used to do Jack 3D for fun. I was that kid. I looked at them all, and it was funny because they had me working there. It's like I was just the guy on the couch at Planet Fitness when I worked there. But we had a trainer who was an Army Ranger who has 7 deployments. And we were right across the street from the VA, so all the vets were in there. And it's like all these kids were trying to roll one over on us, like, bro, like most of us have combat deployments and like seeing people take 10 times harder than what you did. You look like a fucking, you look stupid. Like you can tell you're taking it wrong. One of your biceps is twice the size, and your ass is infected. Oh shit! Hold on, Eddie's calling me.
Oh shit.
There we go.
Yeah. Hey, what do you know
What's
about
up?
Americas?
What is it? Primerica?
No, Lithium Americas.
Lithium Americas? We can find out real quick.
Who the fuck is this? Oh, fuck.
Lithium Americas, you said? How do you spell it?
Yeah. Lithium Americas.
Okay.
Hey, what's up?
What are you doing?
Let's go to her page.
Eddie.
They haven't
Hold on,
posted
give me a second.
anything in 7 months.
Lithium was once the hottest trade out there, but now, not so much. So how did demand for this highly sought-after metal just fall off a cliff along with some of the stocks? Pippa Stevens joining us now. Pippa, good morning. It's a big story.
It is, Brian. Good morning. And so lithium prices have essentially collapsed, unraveling on oversupply fears. At the beginning of the year, spot prices topped $70,000 per ton, according to Benchmark. But today, they're trading under $16,000, a decline of nearly 80%. Prices started rising at the beginning of 2021 as forecasters said the market would be oversupplied, which pushed prices up nearly 800% in the span of just 3 years. But now there's a perfect storm, as Citibank called it, of destocking, deceleration in EV demand, and supply growth. When prices were rising, battery companies stockpiled supplies, which they're still working through just as demand slows. And supply came online faster than expected, in part because sky-high prices make projects that would otherwise be too expensive economically viable.
Oh, by the way, we're live streaming right now.
A seasonally weak period before China's Lunar New Year in February. So key players like Albemarle, Livent, and SQM catching a bid this month.
Americas that we're watching. I got it over here on the Weeble. Looking at it, and well, let me just bring Weeble into here. That's now RSI. I'm looking at it. Let that RSI drop into more oversold territory.
Yeah, but I just think whenever it actually starts picking up, that's whenever it's going to be booming. Because so the way that I've seen all the information on that is the area doesn't have the housing to support. So that means hotels and stuff are being built right now to support for a massive mine.
Oh,
so whenever
workers in there.
Yeah, exactly. And the closest town is like an hour away.
Interesting.
So it's like once everything starts booming over there, it's going to be like West Texas, you know? Like it's just going to skyrocket.
I think, listen, at the end of the day, and we talk about lithium and you talk about lithium.
Yeah, Tyler, I ain't been doing
it sounds
shit.
Like a fancy thing, right? It's on the periodic table, number 2, by the way.
Shit, man.
It's kind of just, it's almost
just working and doing that shit.
Capital intensive. It's dirty. It's hard.
I thought you didn't have good internet.
In places
I don't. Play on the fucking phone, man. Shit's ghetto, but it works.
That's why we're trying to get him internet.
It's an expensive item that can only be made profitable, I think, and correct
me if I'm wrong. Are you still working in Stephenville?
Yeah. You're just running a project right now where I can work from home.
Nice. How do you work from home if you got shitty internet?
Use the fucking work computer's hotspot.
Damn hangnail got me good.
Bulk, a lot of it.
Yo, so where are you at right now?
Iowa. I'm in Iowa.
Ooh, Iowa, huh?
Oh, it's fucking snowing. I think we got over a foot right now of snow.
Damn, yeah, it's fucking hitting you hard.
Yeah, easily over a foot.
Listen about this, more important, listen to lithium free fall, because I'm watching that right now in the market.
Yo, so how does that work with the snow? Do you get paid still or what?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I don't go back in until Tuesday.
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, Chicago, I think they're shutting down everything.
Yeah, I don't go back in until Tuesday, so.
I'm gonna see what Bloomberg's saying real quick. Oh wait.
What are you doing with the house then?
Paying for it?
No, I mean, like, are you renting it out or what?
No, just paying for it, really.
Shit.
My buddy's about to have his friend move in, and then he'll go get a job and pay rent and upkeep the house while we're gone. And then I have an interview the 22nd for AEP in Abilene, so if that one kicks off and I'm gone, I'll be home. But if not, I'll just keep traveling.
Man, fuck traveling.
Yeah,
But I mean,
traveling.
at least like $8,000 a month, dude. I can't argue that.
True that.
Without like a degree, so.
For me to get that here, I'd have to drive to Denver, and I am not.
And I don't work. Like, I don't do anything really.
Yeah, you just drive.
Yeah.
That's all you do, you drive.
Yeah, so it's like I can't complain. I'll be gone for easy labor and decent pay.
I don't know, man. I like that one saying, though, man. Some people are so poor, all they have is money.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing. That's why I'm investing it into this house. But between, like, I got a bunch of shit, too. So it's like assets, you know. I got the camper, the motorcycle, the kayak, a bicycle, you know. Like, I just have things, so. But it's like I don't really have time to use it, but we'll see.
How's the bike?
Fast.
you wrecked it yet?
No, fuck you.
It's only a matter of time. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tyler. Just thinking about it
But
reminds me of that.
you think about it, it's the same. But it's the same as a car. Like, oh, it's only a matter of time. No fucking shit. Like, you can't be flawless every time. But I mean, it's like.
Eddie, look at our background.
Look at your background.
Well, there's once upon a time in the back road, like across the street from school, when you and Tyler raced a Mustang. Good Mustang.
Yeah.
But I didn't do
fuck
that.
Fuck that. That motherfucker was like, hey, the cops are called. While we were doing donuts around the fucking softball field, and he's like, hey, we got a jet. Let's go down this fucking dirt road.
Yeah, see,
fucking
I
asshole.
I'd never do that.
It was you that said the cops got called, though. No cops got called. And I'm following you. Yeah. I'm following you on a dirt road, getting blasted by dirt, not being able to see where I'm going. That night was fucking wild.
That was funny as fuck.
With Cole, wasn't Cole there? No.
I forgot.
Yeah, I think it was just me and you.
Oh, I feel like Cole was always around whenever I was doing dumb shit.
Yeah, I was in someone's passenger seat for that one. I think I was in your passenger seat, Tyler. Because I remember I was going through the fence. You just hitting the brakes.
I mean, honestly, like, I mean, for sure, it's only a matter of time. But at the same point, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, some of it's just dumb luck. Like if you're riding up north and you catch like a salt patch.
Oh yeah, shit like that for sure. I did almost wreck it in San Francisco through traffic.
Yeah.
Like zigzag, or I was following my buddy, and then he cut in front of, you know, two cars to get on the shoulder, and I was just following him, and I was like, and I fucked my shoulder or my ankle up, and whenever I tried to wiggle between that, about fucking ate shit, like wrecked it right there and stopped traffic, but I saved it, you know. Yeah, it was bad, but whatever, it happens. But yeah, haven't tipped it yet.
Nice. I think I'm on like 5.
Oh, Brandon had his, like, Brandon's got a Harley or something, but he dropped it just down the street.
Damn.
Yeah, like, sometimes shit happens.
Yeah, well, he just sucks. But like, I ride with my buddy, and he's had a 750 or whatever for a while now, and he's like scared to ride, like to do turns and shit, like U-turn on like highways and everything. Like not highways, but like, you know, roads where it's like, oh, I missed my turn, I just have to U-turn right here. He's like, I can't U-turn.
Really?
Like in a single lane kind of thing. Like he can't do that. I'm like, what the fuck?
Tell him to take a fucking safety course, man. They teach you how to do that shit.
I think he has.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, he's just a sissy. I don't know. I don't have a problem riding at all. Like,
yeah, that shit's relaxing as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't ridden.
You get what are you doing? Like in Strawn? Like which house?
So my family has a house out here.
Are you just fixing it up? How's that going?
It's going painfully. Like everything I do to fix it up, like it's 2 steps backwards. Like go to pan it and find out all the wood's rotting underneath it, so go to replace the wood, and then like everything just keeps adding on to itself.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you have Mikey
Rick-
on Snapchat or anything, or like literally
Yeah.
on anything? Because he's a good
Yeah.
source to like talk to and see like what's up.
Yeah, I got him on Facebook. So far, I've been able to do most of it.